Hello, good morning, everybody. Hope my voice is loud and clear and you're able to hear me well. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
So firstly, thank you so very much to our esteemed speaker for having taken time out of their busy schedule for joining us today and spending their valuable time and sharing their perspectives. Uh, I'll start off by giving an introduction about the topic. So the topic essentially today is about driving post-pandemic growth in the consumer space. So essentially, as you would have guessed, all the three esteemed speakers that we have today are from the consumer goods space, be it FMCG or FMCD. Unfortunately, we were also supposed to have a fourth speaker, Mr. Arijit, but then because of a last-minute medical emergency, he couldn't join us. He might still be able to join us a little later, but then chances are he may not be able to, unfortunately. We just hope that whatever that emergency is, it doesn't really have too much of an impact. So yeah, coming back to the topic. So once again, it is driving post-pandemic growth in the consumer space. The context here really is that we all know that the stepping stone towards reaching post-pandemic normalcy, if at all there is going to be what we think as normalcy, uh, the stepping stone to reach that is going to be survival in the face of uncertainty, planning for the future, and bouncing back stronger. Right? So organizations in the consumer space are fundamentally strong. We all know that. Most, if not all, consumer goods companies are fundamentally strong. The demand is always there, and the supply chains, in the case of most companies, are quite robust. Right? And the focus is there on rebounding with changing consumer choices as well. Now, hopefully, with improved economic activity and higher crop volumes, this augurs very well for positive impact on demand as well, because again, it's purely driven by consumer demand and consumer sentiments at the end of the day. The brand was is redefining strategies to align people, process, and technologies to navigate through the headwind. So this is definitely a headwind, but then I'm sure we'll be able to sail through by redefining our strategies in these three areas specifically. So it is imperative for organizations to decode the composition for this changing consumer landscape to drive post-pandemic growth. So that is the context. So essentially, bottom line is that there is a strong headwind. We've been in this riding and sailing in this headwind for the last 16, 17 months now. And it is time for us to take a permanent, probably relook or a rejig of our people, processes, and technology. And with that, we will be able to navigate this better is the general thought and perception in the consumer landscape right now. And to share their perspectives, with us on this, we've got, like I said, the three esteemed panelists today. Mr. Hetal Kumar Shah, who's currently the head of learning and development at Havmore Ice Cream Private Limited. He comes with over 20 years of work experience. He has conducted over 2,500 interventions covering over 4 lakh participants at various levels. He manages the complete cycle starting from T&I, content development, delivery, and measurement. He has successfully managed a team of more than 20 plus trainers as well. So Hetal Kumar Shah has previously worked with Azafran Innovations, which is a part of Dishman Group, and Amway India Enterprise as well. He has also been a freelance trainer for sales and soft skills. He holds a PGDBM MBA marketing from TIMS. Thank you so much, Hetal ji, for joining us. Welcome to the panel today.
Thanks, Bala. Thank you so much for.
Thank you, sir. Sir, could you please increase your volume? Your voice is a little feeble, please.
Thanks, Bala. Is it okay now?
Slightly better, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Next up, we have Mr. Akash Sangole. So Akash Sangole, sir, is the head of HR and General Administration and CSR at Panasonic Life Solutions India Private Limited. He also comes with over 20 years of work experience. His expertise includes strategic initiatives, leadership development, talent acquisition, OD intervention, industrial relations, that is IR, wage settlement, designing and implementation of compensation and benefits, design and implementation of PMS, that is performance, policies, HR business partnering, etc. So Akashji has previously worked with Volkswagen, L'Oreal India, Chemetall India Private Limited, Birla Kennametal Limited, and JK Answer Limited as well. He holds a master's degree in personal management from Pune University. Welcome to the panel, Akashji.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Unfortunately, Mr. Arijit couldn't join us. So last but not the least, we've got Mr. Abhijit Basak, who's the divisional finance head at IFB Industries Limited. He comes with more than 11 years of experience, out of which the vast majority, that is over a decade now, has been with IFB. His expertise areas include auditing and internal controls, statutory compliance, risk assessment, finance function, that is pricing, cash flow management, cost optimization, people management, etc. So prior to IFB, Abhijit has worked with Magma FinCorp Limited. He completed his CA and finance management studies from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, that is ICAI, Kolkata. Welcome, Mr. Abhijit, to the panel today.
Thank you, Bala. Thank you.
All right. So once again, the topic for today is going to be driving post-pandemic growth in the consumer space. How exactly are we going to lead people, processes, and technology in order to be able to better navigate the changing consumer landscape? So, question number one is, so we all know that the future of work is going to be about reinventing. Yeah. So how is driving a more formalized workforce enabling productive outcomes? So now we all know that in the consumer space, in the case of FMCG, FMCD companies specifically, we all know that many companies, many manufacturers work with informal workforce, directly or indirectly. Right? It could be maybe the salespeople who are under distributors, or it could be the blue collar workforce who are deployed at factories or warehouses, etc. So, are we actually relooking at this informal workforce, because it typically goes under the head of a marketing costs or maybe other overheads, etc. in the financial statements of organizations. So, are we relooking at them in a slightly different manner? Are we looking at formalizing them maybe in order to be able to get better productivity? Is there a cost impact because of this? And is this a sustainable growth channel for us to pursue? So, Hetalji, I want to have your opinion on this first.
Thanks, Bala. Is it better now? My voice is audible?
Yes, it's better now, sir. Yes.
Okay. So what we think is, this is my opinion in terms of formalizing the workforce. This will certainly help. Why? Because one is you have a better reach, you have a better connect. And when you talk about reinventing processes, people, and technology, one has to start with reinventing oneself. When we stuck with this pandemic, since we're talking about post-pandemic scenario now, when we stuck with this pandemic in the last April 2020, I mean, everybody was in a shock. Nobody would have expected it to be such big impact. So I'll tell you from the live experiences, what we have is we started with understanding and reinventing ourselves, and installing that confidence and positivity at the last level. So that's what we started doing it. And that was the phase one. And phase two, when we talk about, it was slightly better. We were better prepared in terms of when phase two occurred. But yes, constant connect with the team, constant connect with the informal workforce especially helped us. And formalizing them will certainly is a way forward, because you will have a better connect. That's more from a outcome perspective. And I also foresee that there will be some changes in the laws as well, which we all need to comply in terms of when we need to formalize this things. So looking at the future, I would feel that yes, formalizing workforce would be a way forward for the companies, especially in the post-pandemic growth, if you're looking at.
Wonderful, sir. Great to hear that. So basically, you're saying that it is the way to go, and you feel that it deepens your engagement with them, and it also drives better outcomes. And yeah, there are going to be some laws hopefully in the future, probably by way of this proposed, new labor codes as well, which will help us drive even better outcomes from them. So from an L&D perspective, sir, is there anything specific that you think we all should do to drive better productivity from them?
See, as I've started with, one has to understand the when we talk about from an L&D perspective, a lot of times we talk about the improvement in the processes, improvement in the policies, but at times what I have seen is we lose on the focus of on an individual. Like you have processes, you have trainings, interventions, and stuff built around processes and policies and technology. But unless and until you address that individual need, emotional need, unless and until that individual is emotionally uh, intelligent and stabilized, you can't actually drive through those processes. So what at Havmore we have started last year is we started ensuring that that emotional needs are being taken care at the beginning of it, and then we started with our improvised processes, improvised interventions in terms of how do we work and how do we excel. And uh, quarter one results for 2021, whether we have achieved our highest ever sales in quarter one. Unfortunately, the pandemic struck again in April. And being an ice cream industry, that's our season. April, May, June is the quarter where we do maximum of our sales. So again, that was impacted. But yes, the way we have started as a result of all this tradings interventions and building that confidence, not only in our team, but we have also ensured that we reached out to all our channel partners as well, be it a small retailer in a remote place. We have ensured during this pandemic time, and, with our right intervention and the right tools, we reached out to each one of them. And quarter one was a great year. Again, we are bouncing back. Our current month results are pretty encouraging in terms of the way we are moving at. So it's a culmination of a lot of things, but I see a lot of positivity coming back into the market in terms of the consumer sentiments.
Great to hear that, sir. And congratulations on delivering your best ever Q1 in Jan, Feb, March, I presume, right? So
Yeah,
that's your Q1.
yeah, that's our
Fantastic to hear
Q1
that.
for, yeah.
Great. Wonderful, sir. All right, fantastic. So now moving on, so Akashi, can I have your views on the same thing? So do you really think formalization of the informal workforce, right? It could be across multiple channels, like could be your channel partners in sales and distributors, or it could be your plant or warehouse,
Yep.
blue collar workforce, etc. Do you really think that is a viable opportunity for consumer organizations to tap into? And if yes, what do you think should be the priority for us to to move forward with, Akashi?
Sure, Bala. Thank you. So there are different aspects which I would like to touch upon. First is, I mean, if you say India, it is a very large unorganized sector. There is such a large workforce which is working in unorganized sector. And typically, if you see minds of these employees or people, those who are working at the bottom of the pyramid, so most of them, or a lot of people, they want permanent employment. If you see, if you go to factories, if you see there are contract labor who is working, they would look for permanent employment. Even if the salary is little less, they would be fine. But if there is a sustainability, if the employment is for long term, they would look for that. So if you look at currently, uh, because of this, if they get permanent employment or if they get benefit which is for long term, uh, if the employment is formalized employment, certainly also we can look at their skill development. In a organized sector, we don't know what is happening about their skill development. So if you look at their skill development, the productivity could be better. The quality of product could be better. The quality of services could be better. And this is not limited to only FMCG or FMCG. This is applicable across. No, this is for India incorporation. So certainly formalized employment would add to quality, or it will certainly add to productivity. If you see typically in this pandemic, uh, since there were no permanent employments, or since there was no formalized employments, a lot many people went back to their hometowns, whether it was UP, Bihar, or different states where from wherever they came, because there was no guarantee what will happen, whether they will get the wages or not, and so on. And also they were not having any facilities, and that is why they went back. So certainly I believe that formalized workforce will add to quality as well as productivity, both. Yeah, Bala, over to you.
Sorry, I was on mute. I didn't realize that. Sorry. So basically, you are saying that, yeah, not just in consumer space, but then across the board, across various industries, this is something that organizations should do, essentially, right? To make sure that you have better quality and productivity both, right?
Certainly, and just to add, maybe if you look at government strategy also, like also Hetalji touched upon a little bit this changes in the law, no? Like a new labor code. Certainly, I mean, government is also looking to extend certain benefits to this unorganized sector. If you talk about fixed-term employees or gig workers, so I think this will certainly help to improve the productivity.
Great, perfect. And what kind of a workforce do you think should be the first target for us to formalize? Would you go after the channel partner workforce, that is the distributor workforce, or would you go after blue collar workforce? Which do you think should be done first, if there is a priority, or it should be everyone?
See, it depends organization to organization. It depends, yeah. Because for an example, if we look at us, first I would look at where I would like to, add productivity. Whether it is, as you said, those who are working in sales, like long arm salesmen who are working shoulder to shoulder with distributor people, or I would like to add something in factories. And when you talk about factories, also there are different dynamics when you have more people on board. Yeah. So looking at this, there would be, I mean, every company would decide it differently. But certainly, as far as Panasonic Life Solutions, what we have done is just to share with you example. Initially, 2020, when we started with pandemic, we ensured that our employees who are through contract also, and those working as a long-arm salesman also. No? We told them during pandemic, whatever happens, we will not fire anyone. We will not reduce anyone's salary. You will get your regular salary. There is nothing to worry. We will take care of you. And that is why we could see absolutely people didn't go back to their hometowns. They were here, and whenever we wanted them, when we started back in 2020 in June, July, they were ready in the factories as well as sales also. So certainly, I mean, this certainly helps.
All right, perfect, sir. Thank you so much for your views on that. Abhijit, sir, same question again. So, do you think formalization of the unorganized sector or the informal workforce is something that you are looking at as an individual, in your opinion, and maybe as an organization as well, which is IFB, as a sustainable way of driving better productivity in the future? And if yes, then which type of workforce or which kind of profile is something that you will go after in the first place?
Right, Bala. So just to start with, this unorganized workforce is basically the people who are most vulnerable in any company put together. So in IFB, we have people at the CSR level who are the counter sales representative or the technicians in the consumer goods industry who are directly interacting with the customers. So because of this pandemic, wherein people have lost their jobs, there have been a lot of transformations in any organization for that matter. So that is the reason why this particular workforce has has lost their confidence. So it is most important factor to foster confidence on them. That is the key element. And apart from that, we also have franchisee networks wherein a lot of people are employed, as well as the dealers and distributor network, wherein a lot of unorganized workforce is prevalent. So putting them all together through e-learnings, through e-trainings is what that matter. Now, as an example, this pandemic has taught us how to link between this workforce, because earlier, if you see, say for a location like Ludhiana, so trainings, etc., whatever used to happen before the pandemic era was mainly a geographical locations. But out of this pandemic, we have understood, rather it as one of the blessings, you can say, wherein we have virtual meetings, virtual trainings, wherein people of one geography connect with the other. So it gives them a benchmark to understand the people of other locations, other geographies, their their sentiments, how they how they think that the consumers should be dealt with. So there are a lot of learnings out of this. So definitely what Akash ji and what Hitul ji touched upon, it is very important to formalize this workforce, because unless and until we do it, we will not be able to drive them. So that is what I feel.
Got it. So once again, so you're basically saying that in order to get better outcomes or better productivity from them, you will need to formalize them, right? Otherwise,
Right.
you will not be able to have a grip on them, essentially, right?
Correct. Correct.
Perfect. So from a finance perspective, I mean, since you're the divisional finance head, formalization does come at a cost, right? Because if you formalize the workforce, there are certain compliances, statutory obligations which we'll need to adhere to. So there will be a cost upside. Do you feel that the productivity upside which we would be getting because of formalization would definitely justify the cost upside, or do you think it remains to be seen?
No, so Bala, from our perspective, from IB perspective, we have not added any cost, incremental cost to this. Because we had a lot of localized trainings wherein lot of used to have lot of guest houses, lot of even lot of tie up with the event partners, etc. Wherein we used to incur a lot of cost as well. So because we had our own technology team, so we have driven this e-learning platform and e-training platform on our own. So there is not much that cost which is added to it. And even if you actually formalize this workforce, there is some benefit that you will definitely get in terms of the service charges that you incur to the service provider as well. So from an IP perspective, yes, there is no cost escalation as such.
Understood. Understood. So essentially, the productivity gains are there. So it's not really so much a question of cost. Wonderful.
True.
Wonderful. Got it. So it's great. So unanimously, all three of our speakers are agreeing that formalization of workforce is definitely the way forward, considering that in this new age and in this new world, in this bold new world, we will need to have better control over this workforce so that we can get better outcomes and productivity from them. Great. All right, sir. So uh, moving on to the next question we have for the group here is that uh, do you think over the last 15, 16 months that we have seen of this pandemic, do you think that there has been a change in consumer behavior or consumer sentiments, right? Is there a pattern emerging now? And if yes, then how do you think that the people supply chain has to be realigned? How do you think your respective function, be it L&D or HRBP or finance, how do you think your respective function has to be reoriented or rejigged in order to better align with the emerging trends in consumer sentiments or consumer behavior, if at all you think there is one? Yeah. So again, I'll start with Hetalji here. So Hetalji, do you think in the last 15, 16 months there has been a change in consumer behavior? If yes, in what ways? And if it has changed in the ways that you think it has, how do you think from an L&D perspective, from your function perspective, you should realign yourself to better cater to the emerging consumer trends? Sir, you're on mute. Hello.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So thanks, Bala, for asking this question. So when we talk about, when you spoke about the pattern in last 15, 16 months, the only pattern I see is there is no pattern, because we are sailing through the time which is very uncertain. The only best way to define is we have to be very quick. I was reading an article the other day. There were companies who used to take 6 months from a drawing board to implementation for a project. Now it is taking 2 days. So that's the kind of speed with which we have to align ourselves and implement. We don't have those luxuries of having those long deliberations and discussions in terms of. So what I see in terms of the people requirement or from an L&D side, uh, basis the current development which is happening is we need more agility and speed in terms of execution. So we need people who are more agile, if you ask me, in terms of what kind of change, because even today it's pretty uncertain. Nobody will say for sure that Q3 will be like this or Q4 will be like this. We have to play as it comes. So like in a language of cricket, as Virendra Sehwag says, कि जैसे गेंद आती है, you have to think like that for a time being. So yes, we need people with a lot of presence of mind, with a lot of agility. And our focus in trainings is how do we ensure that we build this. And whenever there is a new inflow of the people, we are ensuring that these are the top priorities for us: the flexibility, the agility, and the from drawing board to final execution, the speed. So these are the couple of parameters which we focus going forward at present. And secondly, we are also looking at, like in the first phase, uh, like us also, most of the companies were focusing on reducing denominators, reducing the cost. How do we optimize the cost? But purpose of the going back to the basic, the sole purpose of the business is not to reduce cost, but to maximize the value of it. So, but the good thing is in this year, in 2021, at least I see in my company and across a lot of other companies when we speak and interact with each other, now people are focusing more on increasing the numerator rather than reducing the denominator. So that's the major shift or change from an organizational perspective. Like companies are thinking on, uh, uh, I would not say 100%, but yes, more companies are being more optimistic views in terms of their future and their growth as far as the future is concerned for them.
Wonderful, sir. Very well said. So, I mean, increasing the numerator rather than reducing the denominator, because you feel that it's more about value now, not so much about the cost, and it's about agility, right? So, forget about patterns. If you look for a pattern, you won't find one. So, basically, you're saying that be prepared to face anything new in the market because things are changing at a rapid pace, essentially. So, you feel that it has to be more about agility and not for analyzing what patterns are there because there is no pattern, essentially,
No,
right?
analyzing pattern will help, but by the time, I mean, it has to be really fast. It cannot be the way we used to do it previously, because the digitization has also, one of the impact of this is it has reduced the loyalty of the brand loyalty. So the more exposure we have to this uh, digital revolution, the brand loyalty will be lower and lower in terms of e-commerce. If you see uh, the the kind of growth we've seen across the industry, the e-commerce in India has grown in this pandemic by about 2.1 x. If you look at the current report of McKinsey and all, so which is pretty significant, the way we are moving ahead in terms of where we are, where we were, and where we want to go. So yes, we need to analyze the trend. I would not say not analyzing it, but yes, we have to be prepared to modify it and be more flexible in our approach.
Got it. Got it. So from your perspective, not just for your function, which is L&D, but overall, you feel that we need to invest more in people who have more presence of mind, like you rightly said, people who are more agile, people who can get things done quickly and efficiently. Both.
Right.
Great, great, great. All right, sir. Fantastic. Thanks so much for your views. So again, same question, Akashji, I'll pose you. Is that, yeah, I mean, do you think there is a change in consumer behavior or consumer sentiments in the last 15, 16 months? And if yes, what do you think it is? And how do you think your function, that is HR, for example, should be realigned to better cater to the changing consumer behavior, the emerging new patterns which are emerging in the market, so that we can drive better growth in the future?
Sure, Bala. So, Bala, what I think is consumer sentiments, what we have seen in 2020 and beginning of or H1 of 21, certainly there has been surge in e-commerce. If we look at business, I mean, there has been a sudden increase in e-commerce business in multifold, and this is a pattern. However, we are not sure whether this will sustain for long, because as soon as you see in different cities, you open lockdown and suddenly people are in shops. Yeah, so I don't know whether this will continue or not. However, looking at this is a very dynamic situation. So looking at this from HR point of view, what we have to do, or what I can think of, is we have to be very, very resilient. We have to build capability which can really face dynamic situation. For example, when we talk about
Akash, we are not able to hear you. We lost you there for the last about 5
E-commerce.
minutes.
So certainly I have to think. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
But I think there is a
Am I-
little bit of lag. We can hear you now, but I think there is a bit of a lag. So whatever you spoke, we're hearing it
Maybe
after.
network issue. Is it better now?
Much better now. Yes, now it is in sync. Yeah, please go
Okay.
ahead.
So what I was saying is looking at this demand generation patterns, which could be e-commerce today, tomorrow, it can go back to normal situation. We don't know that. So this is a dynamic situation, and looking at this, our basic function of HR is to build the capability to face this kind of any dynamic situation and to create this resilient organization. This is what I feel. Yeah. So whether it is about customer service, whether it is about new channels like e-commerce and so on. Yeah.
Got it, sir. So in your function, hello, Akash sir, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes, Bala.
So, to your point, that is building better resilience within organizations to be able to withstand the situation and come out of this as well. Can you give some examples as to how exactly you were able to build that resilience within your function, that is HR at Panasonic?
Yeah. So, for example, what we have done is, as far as HR is concerned, initially we didn't have this e-commerce as a separate vertical. It was supporting to our trade business, and which was very, very small function with hardly 1 or 2 employees. But then during this pandemic, we took efforts to build this function in a strong way so that we can really reach our customers, because I think customer sentiments, if you look at during pandemic, rather than they reaching you, they would expect that we reach to them. Yeah. And these platforms like e-commerce, whether you take it like Amazon, Flipkart, or any other platforms, I think these companies, this is certainly helping. And for that, how we can build capability, that is our basic question. And this is the way how we can support the business. Like as I say, e-commerce, whether customer service. So when I say customer service, also we could build our internal capabilities in customer service so that we can reach maximum customers during this pandemic. Similarly, whatever aspects would come like this, so we'll have to keep on working and evolve on.
Got it. No, it's wonderful to hear that you have a dedicated HR function which caters to just your e-commerce business. That is e-commerce business of Panasonic. That's wonderful to hear. Great. And yeah, and that's an example of how you can cater to emerging trends, because I'm pretty sure your e-commerce business would have also grown significantly in the last 15, 16 months, if I'm not wrong, right? Compared to how it was earlier as a channel.
True.
Great, sir. Okay. Again, Abhijit, sir, same question to you. So, do you think there is a change in consumer sentiments in the market, especially once the pandemic started in last March? And if so, what do you think that changes specifically in your organization? What is it that you have seen? And how exactly in your function have you rejigged the structure or the processes to better cater to these new emerging trends in the market?
Right, Bala. So, talking on this particular topic, I personally feel that the consumer sentiments or the consumer behavior has drastically changed a lot. So, what Akash just touched upon, it's just the e-commerce industry which is actually flourishing. So, even when I look at our business, the chunk of the business contributed by e-commerce as compared to other trade partners, that has drastically increased as well. Even as an example, just to put forth, even if I have to do any shopping, I rather prefer Amazon or Flipkart for that matter, rather than going to the shops, etc. So definitely, from a sentiment perspective, from a behavior perspective, it has drastically changed. From a consumer goods industry, our demand for the dishwashers and the clothes dryers have significantly increased. So people, because they have to be at the houses, and even the working professionals, they understand the need of this equipment. So previously, the demand of dishwashers and cloth dryers was not that huge, but we have actually not been able to completely meet up the consumer demands. That is the level of enhancement we have seen in this line of business. And definitely, I mean, there has been a lot of transformation, as I already said. I mean, this pandemic has taught us that if you do not realign your business, I mean, you are completely lost. So your competitors would have an edge, uh, and you will not be able to run it smoothly. So definitely, there has been lot of, I mean, in terms of revenue, we have actually, the pandemic has actually helped us to enhance the revenue, and even from a bottom line perspective, we are now at a very better position than what we used to be. Now, it is very important how we connect with the customers. So, as an example, what we have done in this recent past, we have developed our IFB app. So if any consumer has to, I mean, place any orders, they can do this IFB app itself. So that is how I think it has been.
Oh, great. Great to hear that. So essentially, rather than just depend on e-commerce channel partners, you are building your in-house e-commerce channel itself, right?
Correct,
So
correct.
that's resilience again. Great. Wonderful.
Correct.
Great, sir. So from a finance function perspective, is there anything specific that they have done which is in tune with the changing consumer sentiments at all? If there is any example that you can give us in the last 15, 16 months, anything that you may have done?
See, I mean, we as at IFB, we have tried to realign all the cost elements. So, I mean, in terms of rentals, in terms of warehousing, we have done a lot of optimizations, and those benefits we have actually reaped. Now, even this particular pandemic has taught us that you cannot be dependent on a single source. So, wherein previously we had China as one of the main source of sourcing the raw material, we have developed other vendors in other countries as well.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's actually remarkable considering that in the face of lockdown across various countries, not just in India, changing suppliers is not easy at all. Yeah, that too. I mean, we are talking about a brand like IFB, right, which is not a commoditized brand; it's more of a premium brand. So maintaining that level of quality while changing vendors, that too amidst lockdown, is remarkable. No, that's a great turnaround that you've effected, sir. So essentially, your focus has been from a finance perspective to rejig the costs, to make sure that you diversify your costs and you also try to optimize them so that you are better in keeping with the emerging trends. I think that's great.
Without compromising the quality, actually.
Without compromising the quality. No, completely understood. Given a brand like IFB, I would understand why as well. Great.
Correct.
All right, sir. Perfect. No, thank you so much once again for sharing your views. So the common sort of takeaway that I'm able to get from all these three panelists is that number one, Hetalji, I think, spoke about presence of mind, being able to be very quick and agile in terms of making decisions. Like he said, rather than deliberating on something for months together, now you have to make decisions in days, right? And Akashji spoke about resilience, how you have to make sure that the team that you build or the processes that you put together have to sustain in the future, irrespective of whatever happens, right? Pandemic, no pandemic, or if there is anything else that comes up, you should still have something that is well sustained in the future. And Abhijit sir again mentioned about how you have to optimize your cost, at the same time make sure that the quality is not compromised. Also, how exactly they have built their own sort of in-house e-commerce app, e-commerce portal, rather than be dependent on third-party websites or channels for that matter. Great, perfect. So that brings us to the last question that we have for the day from my side. That is, of course, we take questions from the audience after this, which is more about technology. Now, technology, digitalization has been the buzzword now ever since the outbreak of the pandemic. So technology, as we all know, is disrupting pre-existing operations. Even right now, I mean, we are doing this webinar in an electronic format, right? Typically, webinars used to happen physically, but now it's not. Now this is the term webinar itself is new, right? It always used to be a seminar. It's a webinar now. So essentially, now that we all know it is disrupting pre-existing conditions or operations, how is this kind of digital acceleration or the pace at which digitalization is being adopted by organizations, how is that transforming the growth of consumer goods sector? So how do you think adoption of technology is going to drive better growth for consumer goods companies in the future? And how exactly are each of these panelists that we have today adopting digitalization within their functions, and how do they think it's going to help their company's growth in the future, is what we would like to hear from them. So we'll reverse the order this time. I'll again start from you, sir, Abhijit.
Yeah, sorry. So, Bala, digitalization has actually transformed everything. Today, we are talking more on artificial intelligence. We have seen how any searches on Facebook, I mean, turns up into a business opportunity for the industry as a whole. Even as an example, I have myself tied up with players like Swiggy, Dunzo in my line of business, wherein I bring up a separate delivery chain. Because in IFB, the segment that I am heading is more on the service segment, wherein we offer some consumer products as well in terms of detergents, D-scale, etc. So we have tied up with partners like Swiggy and Dunzo, wherein we are, supplying this material as well to the end customers. Then, as already discussed, that focus on e-commerce is a very important platform, and equally important is that you build up digital payment channels. Along with it. Now, previously, we never used to have, e-payments for the websites, wherein all the orders were on COD, cash on deliveries. But now we have tied up with the other channel partner like Razorpay, etc., wherein or you can, if you as a consumer, if you want to buy anything, you can do it from our website and you can make the payments online itself. For that matter, we have tied up with players like Paytm, PhonePay, etc., which also gives you a digital platform wherein the consumers can make payments. That is how, and I personally feel that digitalization has a great role to play. And truly and honestly, this pandemic has actually taught us how to bring out digitalization for the enhancement of the industry as for the enhancement of the economy as a whole.
Oh, that's a lot of things to do in a span of just 1 year, right? I mean, you've already adopted digital payment wallets. You are saying you've tied up with last mile delivery services like Swiggy or Dunzo, and you are also cross-selling some products like detergents, etc., through your own service delivery channel as well. That's a lot, honestly, and that probably goes to show the pace at which we need to adopt digitalization. Otherwise, we'll be left out in the lurch. Especially, you have a very strong competition as well. Consumer durables, again, especially in the segments you're playing in, you have very strong competition. So you have to keep running in order to be able to even stay where you are, I suppose, right? So it's no, great, perfect. I think that makes a lot of sense, Abhijit. So I'll now go to Akashji. So sir, same question. So we all know that technology is disrupting our pre-existing conditions. So how do you think digital adoption is going to transform or help the growth of consumer goods companies in the future? And specifically, is there any technology adoption initiative you have driven within your function, that is HR, and how do you think that's going to help the company in the future?
Sure, Bala. So I will touch upon business as well as HR. So what we have seen is typically in our organization, not during pandemic, but before pandemic, when we started
Hello, Akash.
on digitization. So it is like mobile.
Hello.
Is it better? Is it better?
Yeah, now it's better, sir. Yes, I think for a few seconds there was some lag. Now it's okay. Please go.
Okay. So what I was saying is, in our organization, we started this journey pre-COVID only. So during the year 2018-19, where we worked a lot on like whether it is mobile-based application for Salesforce, or for customer service, and initially when our Salesforce, even they didn't have like tab or something, but then these years we gave them tabs, so that they can work smoothly with our customers or distributors or dealers. And during pandemic, we could really see the results. I mean, when they were working from home, but the things were moving, the business was happening, and this has really helped our organization. Even for customer service, it has helped, so that people could complain if they have any complaint online, or if they have any requirement, they could do it online. And this has really helped the business. As far as HR is is concerned, this journey is going on. So we are in discussions with like SuccessFactor, where we can have like chatbots and analytics, and which will help us to make right decisions for our people. And this digitization journey will continue. And certainly, we are very sure about it that this will help our business as well as people for long term.
All right, sir. Great. Perfect. 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 So how do you, I mean, without digitalization or without digital adoption, do you think we have a chance of surviving in this, or do you think it has become more of a necessity than a fanciful want to have kind of a thing? Is it a must have or a want to have, according to you?
See, we don't know what will happen in future, right? But one of the survey what I read is someone has said that if we don't get digitalized in next 5 years, then many companies will be doomed. So I think we have to be absolutely careful. And when we see day-to-day digitization is helping our business, so there is no other option than adopting it.
Perfect. So it is something we cannot really escape, and we have to adopt it for the future. All right.
Right.
Great, sir. Thanks a lot for your views again on that. So, Nikhilji, I'll come back to you now. So again, same question. So we all know that technology is disrupting our pre-existing conditions, pre-existing operations. How do you think this digital adoption is going to help organizations to deliver better growth in the future coming out of this pandemic, in your views? And is there any specific technology or digitalization initiative you are driving within your function, that is L&D?
Uh, Bala, there is a lot to talk as far as the digitalization is concerned for us. If I start with our manufacturing, am I audible?
You are audible, sir, but barely. The voice
Okay, is it
yeah.
better now?
This is better.
I'll
Yes.
keep it close to my.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
So as far as the technology and the digitalization is concerned, we have moved a lot in terms of because bits of pandemic, like we manufacture our core products are ice creams. So we, in terms of our manufacturing, we have ensured that the consumer is the first person who touches the ice cream. So that is complete automation in terms of our manufacturing. We start with that. In terms of adopting technologies, we already have SAP implemented a couple of years back. We upgraded to HANA as an enterprise solutions for us. In terms of our Salesforce automation, our journey has started, in fact, pre-COVID, but in midst of COVID, we have progressed a lot. We have our own in-house applications for our Salesforce, which we have started with our journey with a simple order taking app. Now we are building up a lot of features in terms of it's an lead management. We have added asset management. We have added branding modules to it, and we are also providing intelligent input right at the field level. When a person is taking order at the shop, at the retail outlet, he needs to know how I will help this retailer by putting what into his order. So those kind of intelligent input, real-time inputs, we are also trying to help our people at the bottom of the pyramid. So yes, we have come a long way from taking order with pen and paper to tablet, and now helping them with intelligent inputs in terms of how do we, at each outlet level, at each SKU level, how do we optimize the value and the profitability for our channel partner and for us both put together. In terms of the deliveries mechanism and the logistics, yes, our products require a certain degree of temperature. So we use a lot of IoT mechanisms to ensure that the temperatures are maintained during the transfers of the products at the storage. So a lot of analytics goes into that to ensure, and whenever we find that it is missing or it is not within the limits, we immediately, before a customer complains, we come to know in advance that this is something which should not go to the market. So like in each and every aspects of it, we are using technology. And yes, in terms of deliveries also, we are building dark kitchens, especially to promote home deliveries. We are we have tie-ups with Swiggy's and Zomato's and other food aggregators to ensure that we cater to home the demands of the evolving demand of the consumer. So yes, at a lot of spaces, and this is a way forward. I would say this is the future of the industry, without which we cannot survive. And the pace which last couple of years, which was phenomenal. Otherwise, this would have taken at least 4 to 5 years for us to reach where we are today.
No, I completely agree with you there. I think without this pandemic, whatever changes happened in digitalization in the last 12 months would have probably taken us 5, 6 years for sure. I completely agree with you on that. And also, yes, as you rightly said, I come from a logistics background. So I do understand that cold chain business in India, the cold chain network itself in India is not mature at all. It's still at a very nascent stage. And for products such as yours, ice creams, it's very challenging to make sure that you maintain the optimal temperature right throughout the supply chain, right from the factory till the end consumer touch point. It's very challenging, I'm sure. That too in the pandemic, in the lockdown, supply chain was the most constrained. So you have to, as you rightly said, it's great to hear that you've adopted technology like IoT, Internet of Things, to make sure that you are able to manage and monitor the temperature of your products end to end. Otherwise, there will be a lot of consumer complaints. I've also heard something that ice cream, once it is frozen and if it melts, it cannot be refrozen. It will still be in a kind of a semi-solid state or something like that, if I'm not wrong. So if it melts once, it's gone. So it's a very, it's a very difficult product to manage essentially from supply chain perspective. So it's great to hear that you've adopted technologies like IoT to ensure that you are able to maintain your product at the optimal temperature. And as you said, you're also developing technologies to engage with your channel partners and everybody end to end also, so that you have much better understanding of the changes happening in the market at the ground level too, sir. Wonderful to hear that. All right, so that brings us to the end of the questions that I had from my side, and I'm given to understand from our team that there are some questions we've got, and they have put them together in the form of a rapid fire set of questions, essentially. So it's rapid fire, right? So we would request you to tell us the first thing that comes to your mind, right? Like Hetalji said, play it like Sehwag, yeah? So don't deliberate on the answer, just say whatever comes to your mind, okay? So this time I'll start with Akashi. Sir, when do you think we will go back to the...
Am I audible?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible. So can I ask? Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay. So,
Sure.
sir, first question. When do you think we will go back to the pre-COVID levels of growth in this country? Is it 2 quarters away or 3 quarters away or longer?
Next financial year, starting with April 22.
Great. Wonderful. So that's 3 quarters. Great. All right. Second question, sir, to you again. Do you think there will be lesser jobs in the country in the next 12 months?
No, I think situation will continue as is, and situation will improve rather.
Great. It's great to hear that optimism from you. All right. Next question. Do you think the average wages will go down in the next 1 year?
No, it will go up.
Okay. Do you think organizations will have an antibiotic reaction to any arrangement which is permanent in nature? For example, do you think they will not want to have a permanent office lease, permanent employees, permanent or rather, higher fixed salaries and so on and so forth? Do you think?
And this pattern will change a little bit, certainly.
Okay. All right. Last question. So do you think in your business, there will be a certain percent of your workforce which can and will permanently work from home? If yes, what percentage is that approximately?
Not immediately. We haven't thought of that.
All right. So basically work from home on an as needed or a rotational basis, but not permanent, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, sir. Perfect. Thanks so much for that. Abhijit, going back to you, same questions. Number one, so when do you think we'll go back to pre-COVID levels of growth in this country? Is it 2 quarters, 3 quarters, or longer than that?
Well, in terms of IFB, we have already reached what we used to be. And in terms of economy, well, the Sensex and the Nifty has already been with the highest levels. But yes, in terms of economy, it will take, it may take some time. So possibly I also see 1 year from here on.
All right, perfect. Do you think there will be lesser jobs in the country in the next 12 months?
I don't think so.
Okay. Do you think the average wages will go down in the next 12 months?
Not at all. It cannot be.
Do you think organizations will have an antibiotic reaction to any arrangement which is permanent in nature, like permanent office lease, permanent employees, permanent compensation, so on and so forth?
Well, it depends. It will vary from organization to organization.
Okay. So what do you think is the percentage of your employees who might permanently work from home, if at all?
Well, even we haven't thought of that, I mean, as of now. But yes, from an IT industry perspective, there are a lot of companies who are doing on a permanent work from home itself. It will vary from industry to industry.
Makes sense, right? But from your perspective for consumer goods industry, do you think there could be an approximate percentage who may work from home permanently, or do you think that that may not be the case?
I think it can be around 20% approximately.
All right, fair enough. Thank you, sir. So Hetalji, same sort of questions to you as well. So question number one, when do you think we'll go back to pre-COVID levels of growth in our country? Consumer space specifically, if you want, you can take that as well. Is it 2 quarters, 3 quarters, or longer than that?
Well, as my previous panelists have said, for our company also, we are actually, we have already reached and we are surpassing that levels. But yes, for an overall economy, it will take, I would not say a year, I would say maybe if everything goes well by this Diwali, post Diwali, I think that's, we'll go back to the normalcy.
Wow, I hope so too. I really hope so too. Diwali is like 3 months away. Let's hope it
Yeah, so
takes place.
I presume if everything goes the way, which is because it gets highly unpredictable. But yes, if this continues by Diwali, we'll be back.
Hope new variants don't jump in.
Yes, that's the key.
Let's hope so. Fingers crossed. Yeah. So, all right, sir. So, Hetalji, second question for you. Do you think there will be lesser jobs in the country than today in the next 12 months?
No, I don't think so. For the future, whatever the reduction, as I told you, in the denominator would have happened by this time. I see future will be even brighter in terms of more jobs and more productivity, which is good for overall businesses and economies.
All right, great to hear that, sir. So, do you think average wages will go down?
No, I don't think so, because the couple of surveys have suggested the productivity will go up by 1 percentage point, and that's highest after 2008. So
Wow.
I don't think that if we correlate productivity with the wages, I don't see any reason why it should go down.
All right, fair enough. Do you think organizations will have an antibiotic reaction to any arrangement that is permanent in nature, be it permanent employees, permanent office lease, permanent compensation, etc., or do you think that will change?
Well, I would say for the next couple of quarters, most of the companies will have a cautious approach, because again, as he's rightly said that the new variants, or at least for next 1 year, I would say it will be a cautious approach.
Right, got it. And after that, do you think it will kind of stabilize to an
Then
extent?
I think it will be stable.
Okay, all right. Last question. Do you think in your business, there will be a certain percentage of your workforce which can and will permanently work from home or not?
Again, for the permanent thing, we have not yet designed or devised anything. Yes, we are working on a rotation basis, and this has shown that the productivity has not hampered. So, but yes, we have not yet decided. And the broader survey suggests that in India, we can't move beyond 5% of the overall workforce in terms of working from home permanently. And those 5% are mainly from the IT and IT-enabled sectors. So from a consumer industry, permanently working from home looks slightly a different or a difficult thing for us at this point of time.
All right, perfect, sir. We've got a couple of separate panelist questions as well. So there is a question from Sharad. His question is, most surveys say that in the next couple of years, manpower as well as salaries may get restructured going forward. I mean, the panelists in general seem to have a slight disagreement there. So what would be your opinion on this? Is there anyone here who might want to take up that question? So do you really think that salary manpower might actually get according to certain surveys?
Bala, this is Akash.
Yes,
maybe
sir.
I will try to answer in a way that, see, if government regulations are changing, in view of that, certain things might change in terms of employment, in terms of compensation structures. But In general, I don't think there would be major changes. Yeah.
Understood, sir. Got it. Got it. So basically, you're saying if there is a from government side, which might happen by way of these labor codes, etc., it might happen. Otherwise, you think it won't, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think the last question we have for the day, again, an audience question. This is from Rohit. The question is this: as we see inflation going up, will Indian customer who is value driven will become more cost driven in the near future? Are basically, I think this harkens back to the second question which I posed of you, is that in terms of consumer sentiment, right? So do you think customers are becoming much more cost driven? I think one of you pointed out that the brand loyalty is coming down. Yeah. So do you think this is a direct consequence of customers or consumers rather becoming more cost conscious than before? And if so, do you think this is a permanent trend? Does anyone here want to take up that question?
I would like to answer this.
Sure, sir.
So, Bala, consumers are always cost conscious as far as our country is concerned. They are not like the Western countries where they do not look at the cost. But yes, the value and cost, this is a classic balance juggling, which is not related to the pandemic or the pre-pandemic or the post-pandemic era. If a consumer sees the value, they will pay for it. I don't see that is changing anymore. Maybe a shift in terms of few good to have items for a time being may get delayed, but I don't see any permanent change happening over a long period of time.
Got it. Got it. And I think you're absolutely right. That was reflected in the pent-up demand surge that we saw also, right? During, say, December, Jan or so, when India was slowly coming out of the first wave. And even now it is supposed to happen during Diwali is what a lot of people say. Yeah. Akashi, you wanted to also chip in here?
I would just like to add a point here.
Yes,
right, Bala. I mean, pent-up demands. I was out of a consumer durable store and there was a queue. So I never saw a queue in front of a consumer durable store. So yes, that's a pent-up demand, and there is no. So that shows a lot of optimism in terms of the way people are optimistic about future.
Right. I'm sure Mr. Abhijit would be very happy to hear that there was a queue outside a consumer durable store, right? Given that he's from the industry, and same with Akashi as well. I'm sorry, Akashi, were you trying to say something? I thought I heard something from your side, sir. Do you want to chip in here?
No. I just wanted to agree with Hethalji because it is not only cost as one factor, it comes with value. So also it depends on where you are positioning your product. So if you could see, even during COVID also, there was a lot of sale on whether iPhone or luxury segment in cars and so on. So we really cannot say it is only about cost.
All right, great. I think we have one last question and then we'll just stop here. This is the reason why I still took it up despite it being slightly beyond our cutoff time is because there is an emotional angle to this as well. So the question here is, how do we uplift employees' emotional support during remote working? Is this a real issue? If so, how do we think we can support employees emotionally during this time? Would anyone want to take up this question here, please?
I would like to take, because we actually
Yes, sir.
have started. As I was trying to answer your first question, we actually have started with this. During this pandemic, we all were disturbed. Honestly, we were not knowing what will happen. So yes, giving that confidence to an employee that yes, we are there with you, to a channel partner, yes, we are there with you, giving that confidence and sense of security. That's the key. Once I have that confidence and sense of security, then everything else will fall in place. But if I am not confident that whether I have my job tomorrow or not, whether I'll be laid off tomorrow or not, that's a kind of insecurity. No matter what policy changes, what technology changes you bring in, ultimately it's a human who will drive it, who will be driving it. So yes, that's the base. Unless and until we address that part of it, we cannot move on with anything else.
Great, sir. Very well said. So that psychological comfort regarding their job security is very important to provide. Without that, nothing is going to happen anyway, and it will hurt your company's productivity also. Yeah. So no, perfect, great, very well said. Thank you so much. No, that brings us to the very end of this session. So I'm sorry for taking a bit more than an hour's time. But it was a wonderful session. I would personally want to thank all three of you. You've been fantastic panelists. Thank you so much for taking time out once again and for answering all of our questions with so much enthusiasm and so much clarity, which can only come from experienced, seasoned professionals such as yourselves. And I would just want to, on a parting note, also specify that so today's panelists represent companies and brands which also have a lot of emotional connection as far as I am concerned. So I remember that the very first washing machine that we purchased at my home back in '97 was an IFB washing machine. That was when I think IFB launched in India in the late 90s, and that was a front-loading washing machine. Yeah, I still remember it was around Diwali, of course, 97 Diwali, if I'm not wrong, and it was a big celebration in our house as well, right? Akashji, I think the first tape recorder that I remember using when I was a kid, when I was, like 5-6 years old, when I first got introduced to tape recorder, was a National Panasonic tape recorder, right? Way back then, it was very famous. I'm talking about like more than 30 years back. I still remember how it had this orange button, which you can use to, erase and record new content on a tape recorder. Side A, side B, you can record whatever you want, and it had amazing clarity. I think they I don't think I get to hear that kind of clarity even now from most electronic devices we are using today. That magnetic device still had its own charm. I wish I had kept it, but I don't know where it is. We probably, while shifting, it just probably got lost there. And Hitalji, I have a 7-year-old whose most favorite ice cream is Havmore's, that I think that sandwich ice cream or whatever he calls it. I don't know that. There is a couple of biscuits with some ice cream in between, right? That one, and he also loves that Casata slice. So that's the first ice cream he had, and he's just not able to have anything other than that. So I'm pretty sure if he had great Q1 results, definitely my household had some contribution towards that. So for sure, yeah. And of course, unfortunately, Mr. Arijit couldn't join, but then our very first, again, water purifier was an AquaGuard, which is obviously Eureka Forbes product. So I personally had a lot of emotional connect, have a lot of emotional connect with all of the brands that you represent in some way or the other. So thank you so very much for, once again, for taking time out of your busy schedules to join this webinar and for sharing your wonderful views, sir. Thanks a lot once again. Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks, Bala.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation, Bala.